Manny's going to be talking about how propaganda is subverting your reality. It's time for the truth, according to Smooth Manny. Smooth Manny, what is it you're going to be talking about?
So everybody knows that you're slightly being brainwashed.
Yes.
Like
everybody knows? Come on.
That's one of the first things that I've agreed with as the premise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I disagree.
Shut up, Lisa.
Well, you're wrong.
Dumb.
So Gerald is wrong, and everybody is being brainwashed, and they know it.
Right.
But because the people like Gerald, they think that brainwashing is like CIA, MK Ultra, and it's like this.
Well, that's because
process.
you've said that.
Well, that
your
is
other
part of it.
theories. Yeah, true.
But that's not all of it. The main thing
okay.
is the subtle,
it tends to be your
the
focus.
subtle propaganda that is slowly taking over your reality. In order to understand how this propaganda works, we need to understand what is propaganda. Like,
right.
So,
Yeah.
we need to. Our main character is the guy who literally created not propaganda, but who weaponized propaganda outside of a war element.
Okay.
And that is Edward Bernays.
Bernays.
This
like
guy,
a little Edward
Bernays
on my
sauce?
steak.
yeah, and I love this quote. Propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government. How could a
love
person
Bernays.
create this new propaganda but weaponize it not in a time of war? He's Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Oh.
And
Okay.
he weaponized Freud's studies, and he's like, oh, we could totally use people's desires, subconscious desires, and just teach them how to want things that they don't need and use that to manipulate them.
Well, see, that would make me think that they were less effective because he's like, let's use people's desires. Like, oh, what are you thinking? Like, lust, you thinking greed? Everyone wants to have sex with their mothers.
It's so weird. Every day's Mother's
So what
Day.
we're going to do is tempt people with their own mothers.
It sounds ridiculous, but that is actually what he did. So one of his first clients was cigarette companies.
Yeah.
And they wanted women to be able to smoke so they could have 50% more
like
of a
Philip
consumer
Morris?
base. And they were like, okay, but at the time, women couldn't smoke. It wasn't socially acceptable for women to smoke.
So I do know that because I do know that they would say not stinky like cigars because at one point cigars were more popular and they were saying cigarettes are less. But now actually, if you ask most people, they'll prefer the smell of cigars than a cigarette. It's just that it's heavier, so lighter. So I do know those commercials.
But do you know how he did it or why he did it?
Sleeping with his mother.
Almost. Women want their own penises, and cigarettes are the women's like sign of having a penis. That's how he thought about it.
Phallic extension.
Sorry.
But I have a clip there, Garrett, called cigarettes, and it sounds ridiculous, but he literally changed the social norm of women being able to smoke in public.
And he believed it's because they wanted penises.
That's what he did.
Okay.
I mean, it worked.
It worked.
That cigarettes were a symbol of the penis. Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes. They were to light up the cigarettes dramatically.
That's Kimmy Schmidt.
Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
He knew this would be an outcry, and he knew that all of the photographers would be there to capture this moment. The next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable with a single symbolic act.
Okay. For possibly the first time since you've been sitting in that chair, you have my attention.
So what's crazy is that it wasn't just a ridiculous thought. It was that he teamed up with the press. He didn't tell them, but he set up an event. He set up a protest, filmed the protest. It was basically he invented the flash mob, but he did it to create a social moment, and then he coined the term for it, and he branded it. That is branding.
Freedom
and
torch.
He invented advertising. That's what he did. But do you guys think America is a consumerist culture?
Very much.
Sure,
Yes.
Why?
Everybody's kind of looks at your branding. I mean, the brands are important. People wear giant brands. Just
They scare us into buying stuff, Manny.
Yeah.
Bro, Bernays invented that.
Let's keep it PG.
Whoa.
He literally created consumerism.
Yeah.
The all-American breakfast being, what's the all-American breakfast?
Sausage, eggs, hash browns.
Edward Bernays. The main purpose of it was he wanted people to be so busy with what they were consuming and feeling good that they would be distracted. Because that way society could be really managed by the people in power.
Okay.
Fauci.
And well, sure, exactly. The people that don't have accountability.
Yes.
So here is
Democrats.
I hijacked your show, and this is a clip called "Consumerism."
In 1939, Edward Bernays created a vision of a future world in which the consumer was king. It was at the World's Fair in New York,
Top flight documentary.
and Bernays called it democracy.
And company after company presented itself as this sort of centerpiece of a society in which human desire and human want and human anxiety would all be responded to and would all be met purely through the free enterprise system.
But in reality, the World's Fair had been an elaborate piece of propaganda designed by
Hey, look,
Bernays
that's
for his
Whoopi Goldberg's
clients.
eyes.
Privately,
Right.
Bernays did not believe that true democracy could
is
ever
that, a
work.
freight train
And
smacking
Bernays
the king?
believed that this meant it was too dangerous
Love her on
to
The
let
View.
the masses ever have control over their own lives.
Those platelets?
And consumerism was a way of giving people the illusion of control while allowing a responsible elite to continue managing society.
So if you have all your
Wow.
desires met, and
Yeah.
that's what you want. Hey, get this red car. You're gonna be super cool, bro. Hey, get this new dress. Get the new iPhone.
Right.
You
And-
buy my phone.
Get your Obama phone. The government. Hey, no, play it.
Romney, he sucks. Hey!
All right, whatever. You get to buy new shirts. That's not that bad. All right. What about when it actually comes to foreign relationships, like taking over a country for good reasons, but you're still, taking over a country.
For a good cause.
So this is my favorite clip because I actually agree with him here. But at the end of the day, he is still manipulating the masses and their perception of reality. This is Guatemala.
For decades, United Fruit had controlled the country through pliable dictators. It was known as a banana republic.
Banana.
But in 1950, a young officer, Colonel Arbenz, was elected president. He promised to remove United Fruit's control over the country.
So he was
United
hired
Fruit
by a
brings in
banana
Bernays.
company
He basically
to
understood
take over
he was
Guatemala.
trying to transform this and brilliantly did transform it into an issue of a communist threat.
I thought I smelled a big chiquita.
Arbenz regime became increasingly communistic after its inauguration in
Big nana.
1951.
Big
Working
Joel.
with the United Fruit Company, the CIA trained and armed a rebel army. As planes flown by CIA pilots dropped bombs on Guatemala City, Edward Bernays, he was preparing the American population to see this as the liberation of Guatemala by freedom fighters for democracy.
The coup would happen when conditions in the public and the press allowed for a coup to happen, and he created those conditions. But
Couldn't that
ultimately,
guy
he was
iron his
reshaping
polo if
reality,
he's gonna be on television?
reshaping public opinion in a way that's undemocratic and manipulative.
Well, what I love about it is that, A, I agree with him. You had to take over Guatemala, but it was hilarious that it was because a banana company paid him to do so.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Okay, but look, it's Guatemala, so I don't
Mario
really care.
here?
I love how you just set me up perfectly.
I swear I didn't mean to.
Right. Hey, what do you care about Guatemala?
Oh, I don't
They don't even
care.
have Coke like Colombia. What do they have?
No, not bananas, evidently.
Gonorrhea.
Sure.
And
that the
gonorrhea.
CIA gave them.
Yes.
Ah,
So,
Whoopsie.
that's our bad.
how is propaganda?
Pepsi.
How does this affect you? I have an overlay. It's called propaganda. Do you guys know only 6 years ago the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
All right, so
right.
this is what happens when you go into Netflix.
Yeah. It's not really subliminal anymore.
It's not subliminal at all. That only exists because Bernays created the system to do that. And when you see it, you will normalize it and it will create your reality. And then, fun fact, you know the CEO of Netflix?
Yeah.
It's Mark Randolph.
Yes.
That's not his full name. It's Mark Bernays Randolph.
Oh, wait.
Is it really?
What?
Yes, it is.
What? I'm going to have to ask.
Talk to me,
Is there any relation?
Of course.
What?
No.
Yes, he was the co-founder of Netflix. Yeah, it's from the Bernays family.
Whoa.
So it's not that shocking.
Thank you for educating us and helping us with the propaganda of our youth. This has been The Truth According to Smooth Manny. Let's take, if there's one really good chat to end on, because I know we've gone late, and, Dave has a prostate the size of a grapefruit.
I do.
Okay,
The doctor says it's eventually going to take my soul.
All right, Sarah B.
It's gotta.
Sarah B wants to know, how do we show this hypocrisy to people who try to stay out of politics / the world events so they understand why they need to be aware?
Wait, how do we show this hypocrisy to people who stay out of? You know what? That's actually a good question. I will say this. You start with an entry point that is something that matters to them.
Yeah.
Because
Compelling.
politics affects everything. And it really bothers me. We've talked about this. Like a lot of Christians go, oh, Jesus wasn't political. Incorrect. So politics affects everything, and politics on. And I know a lot of these people, politicians are very different, right? Politicians often are not the best among us. But politics, certainly in the United States, is a reflection of your values. It's a manifestation of your values. And so when someone thinks, I'm not interested in politics, oh, okay. Does your kid go to school? No. Is your kid homeschooled? Either is your kid a part of the educational system, either at home, private? Okay, guess what? You're now involved in politics. Hey, do you pay taxes? And oh, you're now involved in politics.
Yeah.
Hey, do you own a house? You're now involved in politics. Hey, do you think that it's wrong for you to be rounded up and arrested, or your neighbors rounded up and arrested for simply owning a fire? Oh, you care about politics. Do you believe that you shouldn't live in fear of being arrested? Oh, you care about politics. What you need to do is find out the entry point. And this happens a lot. You don't need to give them the Republican or Democrat spiel. You find something that touches somebody's life. And what a lot of people fail to understand is that your values define who you are, your principles define who you are, and those things define how you vote. And we've talked about this in the past. Look, today, you're not really sacrificing, rams or sheep, right? Yeah. But this was a way back then to physically manifest your faith, to effectively give something physically, something tangible, something that could be quantified. Give it away with no actual promise or expectation of something in return. You're doing it in faith. There are really only two ways to do that today. Tithing to your church, and then something that is permanent, that you stamp as a manifestation of what you believe. A dog in the fight with no promise of something is vote. That's what you can do. You can tithe to your church and where you spend your dollars, and you can vote. Those and actions are what define you, not what you say. And politics is a manifestation of action. And I know the irony is not lost on me that you take action and get active and vote, and then you have politicians who do nothing more than speak. However, it is a significant action on your part, and it affects every aspect of your life. So you don't need to give them a political speech. You don't need to stump. Find something that touches their lives, that you know matters to them, and somehow help them understand how that's affected by the world around them and who they vote for, where they spend their dollars. Because your actions define you, not this.